But that's what I was doing.
Okay, there's two great examples. That was one, because I'm sure if you asked everybody in the room, who here thinks that a morning routine is important, everyone would raise their hand, yet nobody raised it when they said that it's a 10 out of 10. Yesterday, I know we changed seats, but you asked this row right here, do you love your goal? Yes, 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 yes. Okay, we're 18 days into the year. Who's been committed and gone all in every single day? Nobody. So, looking at that, how do you raise your standard, your commitment, your discipline, so that every single day it's not a question?
Well, you've got to build your want first that you really want it badly. If you don't really want it badly, you're not going to be all in. So when I changed, honestly, when I really changed, I was so sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was so inspirationally dissatisfied. Like I knew there was more in me, but why wasn't I doing it? It was driving me nuts. It was driving me crazy. I almost gave up on this philosophy. I almost gave up on it. I remember one day I told my wife, we were in San Francisco, and I said, I'm done. I was just so frustrated with it. And then by the time I woke up the next morning, I said, no, I'm going to get back at it. Like there was something inside me that was a much deeper purpose for me. So the setbacks never won. So when we go all in, it's because we want it more than we want to breathe. We've got to want our goal. So all of you got to look at your goal. And you guys, if you're not all in, for the people who aren't all in, it's because you don't believe you can do it yet. You do not believe it. And I know intellectually you say, I believe it. But it doesn't matter what you believe intellectually, it matters what you believe emotionally. So how do you believe it? You keep feeding it. You fall in love with that idea. Like, Megan, if you were in love with your idea, it just overtook you. That's when you have a magnificent obsession. We've got to build the magnificent obsession first. We have got to build it. Like, if there's anyone on my team, and our team that we're working on, and I'm like, I'll tell Mykie, I got to call them because I know they're not locked in. Like, I know, I can feel it. So I'll call them, and I go, how you doing? No, I'm doing great. I know you're not. Like, I know they're not in the spirit of it. I know. And I'll be very honest with them. And I said, listen, if you're not a product of the product, there's no reason for you to be in our company. I'm very clear about that. I don't want people who are not a product of the product. So I have to be a product of the product. Well, your goal demands you to be the product of that product. What is the product of the goal? The person you have to become. See, we've got to really build a better understanding of who we are. If I tell you you have infinite inside of you, that wasn't my term. My mentor told me that. He said, you have to accept this idea. I said, do you wake up every day saying I'm infinite? He goes, no. You just know it. You just understand it. So you come from that understanding, then you wouldn't say, well, she can do it, but I can't. You know, when we created this business, you don't think we had uncomfortable moments? We for sure did, right? I remember one day I told Mykie, she's like, well, let's do it later. I'm like, I'm going. And I'm going without you. And I told her that. And it was like, I was not willing to procrastinate. And she was mad at me for a moment.
One day we'll tell these stories.
Yeah. Yeah. They were mad at me for a moment, but then the next day, she was all in.
We were on a webinar. I think there was like fire coming through my eyes.
Yeah. She was not happy. But you want to make it where that's all you know is all in. You know, all in once you do it in everything you're doing, it becomes easier. It becomes part of your identity. So all in becomes natural. Like I'm obsessive. Like once I started learning how to play golf, that's all I did. That's all I did. Like because if I want to get a skill, I want to be all in on it.
I want to talk about either delaying gratification or finding gratification in the process. You were talking to Kevin earlier, and you said if you lock in for 24 months, you didn't say 24 days. You said 24 months. But a lot of people want to see the results in 2 weeks from doing the morning routine, or from doing these daily processes, from doing the mental rehearsal. They want to do it for 30 days or 60 days. A lot of people don't want to do it for 24 months and not see get all the gratification.
Most people won't. You know, I remember Monica, when she first came to me, I said, I need you to lock in with me for 24 months. And I said, for 24 months, I will show you how to create a life you never thought was possible. And I remember telling her that. And she was in, but I said, we have a couple rules. No running, no suppressing. because that's what she did. And I said, I can't help you if you're going to run. You know, what I meant was running away from her feelings. And I said, that was our rules. And I said, if you run, I'm not going to work with you. And she wasn't very good in the beginning, but she had great desire. She started building great habits. So she understood delayed gratification. Delayed gratification is doing the processes when we're not seeing the results. You're still building the program. We don't know how long it takes. Some take quicker than others of different parts of your program. But I remember one day she was in my house. And I mean, she was losing. When I tell you she was losing, everything she did, like, she was so frustrated. And that's the day I knew she was winning. She thought she was losing, but I knew she was winning because she never lost enthusiasm. See, James Clear writes about delayed gratification and atomic habits really well. He said, for several years, I wrote out blog posts, never got paid anything. And I just understood the process of delayed gratification. And he said, then my book came out, then it sold like 85 million. He said, if people understood how important delayed gratification is, the people, once they understand how important delayed gratification is, that's where the winning happens. You know, that's why I used the quote yesterday, the evidence of absence isn't the absence of evidence. That's from U Squared, from Price Pritchett. See, we don't see what we're doing. Every time we're doing the process, we're rewiring it. Every single time we're doing it, but people are not willing to do it long enough, so they give in and they start a new process. Then they start something new and then they don't do it. So that's the difference.
You had a key word there, enthusiasm. And a lot of people think that it'll be easier to find enthusiasm when the goal is achieved. When you talk about enthusiasm in the process.
When the goal is achieved, there's no enthusiasm there. The release of dopamine happens in building ourselves up to be that person for the goal. That's why we feel so good after we work out. You'll feel so good after you do your morning routine because you're releasing dopamine. So when the goal is achieved, you're like, oh, I knew it was going to happen. That's not the part. That is not the process. You'll be proud of yourself looking back, but you're not proud of yourself because you achieved the goal. You're proud of yourself because you were willing to do the things to achieve your goal. That's where falling in love with the process is very important. You want to fall in love with the process of what you're doing. And if you stick to it long enough, that's how you change. That's how I changed. Like, I didn't know so many things. Like, I was honestly so enthusiastic that I just knew I was at the right place at the right time. I just knew, I was aware that this work found me. Like, I used to tell my mentor, I said, I wish I would have done this when I was 20. I did it, I started it, I think when I was 28. But then I found him when I was 31. And I said, I wish I would have found him when I was 20. I told him this. He goes, no, you don't. You weren't ready for it. He said, you would have found me. You know, the quote is so interesting. Because most people have heard the first part of the quote. It says, the student will find the teacher when the student is ready, right? But the whole quote says, when the teacher has no more to teach the student, the teacher goes away. And that's what happened in my life. You know, so I can tell you that if you fall in love, like all of you are smart people, but if you fall in love with the process and start working the principles, you're going to win. You are going to win. Like, I'm very hard when I coach Michael. Like, I'm very hard. Right? Yeah. Yeah, because I see him slipping. I'm like, no, we're not doing that. And I'm like, one day I told Michael, I said, you're not coming in prepared. And I said, we're not getting as much out of this. Why? Because I have a standard. When I coach somebody, I change their standard just through coaching. Like, they don't even know I'm doing it, but I know I'm doing it. I lift them up because I believe in who they can be. So I didn't look at him because I say, I got to be hard on him. I see him so much bigger, or I see Kim so much bigger than she is. You know, so I never allow them to drop. I'm always challenging Dave. Like, I question his thinking all the time. And I'm like, no, tell me more. Tell me more. You know why? Because anytime, if you're around a great coach, not an average coach, a great coach really cares about your results. But they care more about you, of who you are you operate in your moral ethics. Like, I really care about that. So if I'm coaching someone, I know first of all. The first thing I think to myself, I got to get them to believe in them like I believe in them. But I had a great teacher. My teacher told me, you don't need to believe it. You just need to know that I believe that you could do it. And I said, that's a lot easier. So I started falling in love with his belief. There's a lot of people who don't have mentors. It's sad to me. It is very sad to me. They don't understand how much they're losing because they measure it by how much it costs. They don't measure it on where it's gone. Like, Michael, how long have we worked together?
2.5 years.
2.5 years. And we keep working together, right?
Yes.
Why do we keep working together?
Because it works.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's changed so dramatically in the last 2.5 years. But most people are walking out there and they say, oh, I'm listening to this podcast. I'm reading this book. They're not getting the proper mentorship. If they just dug in, paid the price, that price is money and time, and did exactly what a mentor, if there's a great mentor, and I think you've got to look for a great mentor, not an average mentor, like a great mentor who really cares, then what's going to happen is they're going to grow so much, they're going to lose so much of that old identity that no longer serves them, and they're going to save so much pain for themselves in time. That's what a great mentor does. But a lot of people don't value it. They do not value it. But then when you'll talk to somebody who has a great mentor, they have such a good relationship with their mentor. You'll talk about it. I mean, you'll hear it. You'll just hear how much they form their life. And that's why mentorship is so important.
Okay, who here feels like they have their why tapped in, crystal clear, very connected to it by show of hands?
That's good.
So like half the room. So how can you help everybody else get connected to their why?
Well, first thing you have to do, who's not connected to their why? Let me ask that. Anybody. Okay. So you want financial freedom. Okay. Why do you think you want it?
Do whatever I want.
Okay. Is that important to you? Yeah. Okay. So what you're telling me, so you know what you want, you actually know why you want it, you're not connected to it though. Because you don't believe you can do it. So you got to change that. If one person can do it, anybody can do it. Like, that's not just me saying it. I know that. So, where do you live?
Spain.
Spain? What part of Spain?
In South.
South? Where do you recommend I go? I love Madrid, yeah. I didn't love Barcelona though.
Oh, you can go all over Spain, it's beautiful.
Yeah? Okay, you gotta talk to my wife.
He's
We're
in
deciding
Marbella, so.
Yeah. Okay, so you've got to connect. You've got to connect to that I can do it. So you're doing well for yourself. Okay, but you're doing well by working harder. So we want to get you to do well by being free. So we've got to create, you know where you're not free emotionally? Emotionally, you're all boxed up in here. So we got to work on this. The part of you that's not connecting to it is not intellectually, it's emotional. So I'll give you something to do, and then come back to me tomorrow. But do it, okay? As I want you to say, what do I need to forgive myself for? What shame do I have to release? And what old story do I keep holding on to from a mistake that I made in my past? If you go deep to these questions and really dig in, you're going to purify your heart. And once you purify your heart, now there's an open door. Like, you're strong, but use that strength against you. You know, use it against you. We got to use it for you. You beat the crap out of yourself. Like, it's obvious to me, so we've got to stop doing that. You know, I was telling, I think it was Ed this morning, in Julio. I said, when I first read Psycho-Cybernetics, in the first 3 chapters, I can't remember which chapter it said, every time you talk back down to yourself, you're chipping away at your self-esteem. And if you're chipping away at your self-esteem, you're taking yourself further away from where you want to go. And that moment, I was very unaware, but I said, I'm going to stop talking bad about myself. It doesn't mean I don't hold myself too firmly to a standard, but I don't give myself out, but I don't say, oh God, I did this. You're going to make mistakes, all of you are. mistakes are part of winning. And so once we get, if anybody else is holding back, like I can feel who it is. Like I know who it is. I know who is holding back. And like I said this morning, holding back is in here. I always use Solomon's quotes. I think it's so good. He says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. It's not as a man thinketh here. It's what he thinks here. Or what she thinks here. This is the driving point to where we're going. So if somebody doesn't know their why, they're not accepting it. They're not aware of what they want. They say this is what they want based on somebody else's want. So we've got to base our wants based on what I really want. What I really want. Like I was using that example of Mykie and I. Mykie and I are super close. We've been super close forever. Like we connected right away, her and I. We just have this interconnectedness between us. Like we could finish each other's sentences. But I knew my want was to create my own business and my own coaching business. I wanted her to be with me. But if she wasn't going to be with me, she wasn't taking my want. And that's why I was so firm with my decision. You know, if you ask my wife, like when I make a decision, it is done. It is like nothing gets in my way. Mykie knows that too, because she'll always use it against me. She'll say, all right, you made the decision. And she knows, like when I'm all in, that's all my focus is. I don't let anything distract me from what that is. What that is. And that's what I do. And that's what you should learn from. See, that is the will. I told you my will is, I developed it really strong. Very strong. But I don't let anything distract me. And some things can be going on the outside, it won't matter. I'm so all in. You know who I wish was all in? The Cowboys. Maybe you should coach them. Maybe you should coach them. Let's make a campaign. I told Mykie that.
First thought when they lost, I was like, Mike said it was like May or Vesta. It's like the same thing.
They can't stand prosperity.
No, they can't.
We're not gonna have to get mutually coached. Alright, we're gonna open it up for questions. Jeff, go ahead.
So when you were wanting what you wanted Mykie to be part of your team, what if Mykie would have said, no, I'm not into that? Would you have given up on your goal
No.
or dream, or you
No.
just would have kept repetitioning it and
I wouldn't repetition anything. I knew where I was going. Like there is no, Mykie did not decide what I decide. I don't decide what she decides. So my thing is, whenever I have a want, I'm all in on that want. So nobody is going to distract me. I accept that right away, and I start working on it. I start going to work on it. Like
So, if
yeah.
she said no, do you change
She
your
did
mind?
say no. Like it's not if she said no, she did say no. She doesn't like to admit it. But
There's a bigger story to this.
and that goes on. She said no, not right now. And she wanted to delay it. So that was no to me. It's either yes, all in, or no, all out. But within 24 hours, she couldn't go to sleep. And she said, I made the biggest mistake, right? And then you said, will you still do this? And I said, yes. I said, I knew my wife. I'm like, she'll be fine. But I didn't accept the no. I did not accept the no for me. Like, I was firm, but I'm very firm with what I want. We talked yesterday about core values. We have to have a deep conviction. Our want is part of my core value. What do I really want? See, most of you don't think always get better. So when you look at your gaps, are you looking at them about what's missing? I don't look by what's missing. I look from a different perspective of what can we grow into. It's a very different emotion. It's a different feeling. Then you're going to get the answers, much bigger answers for yourself.
You know, we're laughing about this, the whole saying no for 24 hours. There is a longer story to it, but it's also a good lesson for everybody. We had been studying directly with Bob for what, 15 years? And everyone could easily say, oh, it was so easy for them to create Boss Coaching Co. They probably had no fears. They probably had no reservations, no hesitations. They just jumped right in and easily built a business. But there was still a lot of work and a lot of commitment and a lot of decision. Everything that we're teaching you that goes into a decision and then building that we had to do.
Yeah,
And we're people, so we had the same.
we did. I mean, building any business, you have to be strong. You have to be strong. I look back, and I guess my memory is very inaccurate because I just thought we were always going to win.
Yeah.
Like,
No, I
so,
love that too.
so I mean, I just decided we just got to get started. And we, like, yeah, anytime you do something new, there's fears. Like, but I never thought it wasn't going to work. That was what I think from the foundation was always setting us apart. And like, I give Bob enormous credit. Like, he taught me how to work. And he let me be me. You know, I think a lot of leaders, you know when you're a great leader because they want to develop you. A lot of leaders only want them to a certain point because they don't want them to outgrow. So, I left, for me personally, it was one reason I outgrew the environment. When I outgrow an environment, I'm gone. Like if I am in a relationship with a friend and they're going a different way, I just don't spend time with them. I've outgrown it. There's nothing wrong about it. It's just like I have one of my core values is once I outgrow something, it's time to move on. And that's really what it was.
Well, my question is to really kind of relates to what you guys just went through, the accepting and the rejecting of the idea. I mean, was that coming from your intuition? Was it something that you reasoned about? I mean,
The brief, like 12 hours of a no?
right. In other words, like
No,
when
it
you
was,
said no.
are you sure you're comfortable? You have a 6-month-old baby. Do you really want to be
Right.
building a business? And it was like, you know what? And then it was actually, yeah, that is what I want. You know?
So, you know, basically that's what the question is, your intuition, is that where you accept, is that where you make the decision of accepting or
I mean,
rejecting?
You can't let
You're
yourself
using
think
all
that
your
the paradigm is intuition, so.
Yeah, like she was fighting her paradigm. That's why. She was all in from the beginning. She was just fighting her paradigm. And I wasn't gonna fall for it. But that's the truth. That is the truth. Her husband called me and he's like, she's gonna be fine. You know? And I was just so definite because I knew there was no way I could spend another moment stunting my growth. Like my growth, when I say my growth means something to me, it's sacred to me. Like it's sacred that I want to bust through the next barrier, the next barrier. We all have them, but they're self-imposed. So for me, this is where I was going. I didn't know how. I didn't know what it was going to look like, but I just knew I was going to get out of my comfort zone and start doing new things. Like if you go watch how much repetition is so important, go watch my videos on YouTube from a year ago in January till now. Like I'm constantly getting better at what I'm doing because I'm constantly wanting to get better. And I'm constantly practicing my craft. That's what I'm wanting you guys to do. And what used to be a resistance is now an acceptance so quickly. And so if you go to the last world-class event to this one's better than the last one. And the next one's going to be better than this one. And I'm always giving new ideas and new concepts to the ideas so people can understand it better. Because I'm always thinking, how can you understand it better? And this is the first time I've ever taught identity like I did this week. Because I wanted to get you to go see your future self and sprint towards it. Your future self is waiting for you to play a bigger game. It is waiting. But you've got to let it. Yeah.
Go ahead.
What's the best way to work with you directly?
Talk to Monica.
makes me feel like shit, and then I don't get it. It feels like I don't get anything done. How do I overcome that?
Like your rule.
Don't make commitments when you're in a good mood. Don't make commitments when you're in a good mood. So when you're in a really great mood and you're feeling really good, you'll commit to all these things. You'll fill your calendar. Oh, I would love to do that. I'd love to do that. And then the day comes and you're thinking, holy, how am I going to get all this done? It's because you overcommit when you're in a really good mood.
Can I comment on that? I had an interesting, since time is relative, and I kind of thought a lot about time. When I'm into the spirit of it, I'm so efficient, and I look at the clock, and it's like, it's from 2 minutes, it feels like an hour going. So for me, it's kind of pushing myself to, because when I'm into the spirit, it's like time stands still. It's gone. And it's like, wow, how did I do this? I had this morning too, it's like, in 2-3 minutes. I expected, on my goal-achieving list, I said 20 minutes, and the sprint took 2-3 minutes. It's like, wow. So it's kind of balance there too. You
Yeah.
push yourself if you're in the spirit of it.
And do it now as well.
Yeah, Arlen, I'll tell you, I used to do the same thing. When I wasn't winning, it was because I was overcommitting. And so what you want to do is get honest with yourself. What is the best commitment that you could make in your day, in your processes? And I would pick those that you could do. And don't add 1,000 things to it. And when you do that, then once you get those automatized, where it's harder not to do than to do, then you add another one. So, one of my favorite quotes is by Bruce Lee. He said, I was never worried about my opponent who practiced 1,000 moves. He said, I was worried about my opponent who practiced one move 1,000 times. And that's what we want to do. That's why I said, if you really answer the question that I gave you yesterday, what is your pinnacle habit for the first quarter that you would want to install? See, if we did one a quarter for this year, you'd have a massive quantum leap in 2024. One habit, one empowering habit takes us so far. Like if I said to Mike, Mike, I want you to work with the identity of how I see you. And you accept my idea. Forget about your idea. And you just come into what I tell you. You know, I coach Mike, so he knows what I told him. So if he just accepted what I see of him and operated the rest of his day like that, that would change his world. That would completely change his world. And so we want to pick that pinnacle habit on what to do. Like, what is that we're going to commit to? Because when we do too many, we get no movement. You know, momentum happens, we earn momentum. It doesn't just happen, we earn it by thinking in a certain way. And most people are gaining momentum unconsciously. They're totally doing it unconsciously. You know, they don't know they're working in harmony with their faculties, but they don't know they are. But to continue momentum going, you've got to continue doing the same thing. You just start to act. And when you have momentum working for you, take bigger actions then. Take bigger actions then. You know, I look at Kim. Kim had a lot of momentum the second half of 2023. But when she started gaining momentum, that's when I kept stretching her more. But when she didn't have it, I didn't stretch her as much because it would have overwhelmed her. So, but once I started winning, oh my gosh, she called me one day from Greece, and she goes, I'm in Greece. You told me to start trusting myself. I wanted to go to Greece. She booked a flight to go to Greece. And her worthiness changed